Welcome in. We are ready to kick off today's Art Therapy Thursday. I'm Vanessa Gale with Collecting Cousins. You can just call me Vanessa. Happy to be here. I don't know how my sound is going to be today. I have quite a lot of rain happening right now. My lighting is not that good. It's overcast. But we're going to go through this. Hopefully, I won't lose my signal. My Wi-Fi can be very iffy when it's raining and windy, and we have some of the hurricane hitting here up north. As all those bands have come through, we are getting drenched right now. So welcome in. We're going to make the best of it, right? All right. So I just want to share a few things before we start something today. A couple of things that I've worked on and they are finished. And so I want to share. This is a mandala magnet that I did with eyeballs. And it is 6x6. And so the back is magnet. So it's a nice large magnet for a refrigerator or locker or something like that. And in order to finish it, I wrote a little poem that I wrote in my handwriting around the edges. So let me just read that to you if I can find the starting spot. Ghosts and goblins, witches brew. Take a sip, they'll come for you. Eye of newt and heart of toad will keep us all from growing old. Hide your fear and do not scream, for just one night, it's Halloween. So anyway, I wrote that little poem just to go around the sides, and that repeats twice. So this is going to be coming up in my shop in the next few days. I've got a couple other of these magnets that you may have seen me do in another art therapy session that were the quilt squares. So same kind of thing, but more of a Halloween theme instead of just a pumpkin. And this is a mandala that I did with Mandala Mondays that I do a couple times a month. And this one is finished. The Swarovski crystals have been added. You can see those sparkling there. So there are orange ones on the center, and then a couple on each side have a light purple one. So this was just a fun Halloween colored mandala that I did. So that one is ready to go, and it's going to be listed soon too. And then we started this the last time we were together, and I just wanted to share. I feel like it's finished, but I left, that is the mat that was on it. So this was a piece that I thrifted, and I added in some ghosts. And you can see this little guy here on the corner, little spider web. We put some eyes down here. I gave this guy a witch hat, and I put a little green in his face just to give the illusion of a witch maybe hovering over in disguise. So anyway, and we've got some more black cats down here and a witch's hat. So that's what I worked on one of the other times we were together. Yes, I should bottle that and try to sell it, right? Because I need some. I'm losing my eyesight faster than I ever imagined I would in my late 40s. So, but anyway, so this is one that we worked on together, and I'm going to put this back over. I'll put this one in my shop also, but it will be sold without a frame. The frame that originally came on it was just falling apart. So that one will be available for you to frame. This is one that I did last year, I believe it was, and we're going to get a lot of glare on this one, but this was just a little market scene with a young man in the market. I just added some ghosts and some spider webs to this one, but I like that old classic feel and adding in those ghosts. And so that's what we're actually going to work on to start with today, and we'll see how much time we have to finish it if we get it done. But we're going to work. I'm going to roll you down here just a bit. We're going to work on ghostifying this painting. They are fun too, Connie, because you can do this with just about anything. I've got kind of a glare from my light here, but hopefully you can see. So this is a bit larger. I guess I'm going to have to raise you up again in order for you to see the whole thing. All right. We'll try that. Maybe I won't knock it over. And I've got it taped down, so I can't really move the painting. But this was framed. I think I paid $4.99 for it. And it had has a mat also. So it was much larger, as far as the frame goes. It was a pretty significant size. And I just took the print out of the frame earlier today to see what I was working with. and for another reason I'll explain in a minute. But when I got it out, I realized that this is actually a page from a calendar that someone had framed. I guess they really liked it, and so that's fine. But it is glossy paper. So earlier today, before we got together, I mixed up some Modge Podge with a wee bit of purple and just a wee bit of gray paint in there, and just did a coat on the whole thing. And a couple of reasons I did that, it's kind of acts as a, oh, what is that? Gesso. It's not, Modge Podge and gesso are not the same at all, but it kind of acts as that for me. And I didn't have gesso, so this worked. And so this purple gray coat that I put on here, you can see through, but also it gave it more of a night scene, because this was a pretty bright spring scene here, early spring, because you have all the little daffodils and spring flowers here. And you still have some spots of snow that are not quite so bright white now. And so I just wanted to mute it down and have it ready to go to add some Halloween, more fall kind of scenery to it. And I've gone ahead and I've penciled in a few things. Some of the things you may be able to see, but I want to point out what I've done already, just so we're aware where I'm starting from. So I did the coat on. This was not a moon up here. This was just a bright spot kind of in the sky. But I thought, that's a perfect moon, a perfect spot for a moon. It was light already. So I took just a white gel pen and kind of went over that to make my moon stand out. And then I also took the same gel pen. And when I say a gel pen, this is the one that I'm speaking of. It's like a jelly roll. And I just did some highlights along the eave of the house just to make some of the light kind of pop from the moon. And I outlined my ghost that I want to put over here on this spot. And I considered filling him in, but I really want to do him with paint. I've added a couple of pumpkins. I added a ghost in the window. I've got a broom on the porch. And then we have this little boy, and I think he was just leaning over looking at these pretty yellow flowers that you can see through this cauldron here. Welcome in, Tootie. I'm trying to keep a watch on my screen and my what I'm doing here, but I've got my phone raised up kind of high to get this whole thing in. So, but I think he's looking at these flowers here. But I thought how neat it would be to have him looking into this cauldron. Dangerous, yes. The mom and the school teacher in me goes, oh, he can't get too close to the hot fire cauldron. But you know what? This isn't real. So we're going to do it anyway. So anyway, we are going to create a cauldron here. I've kind of outlined it brown. We're going to make this black. He's got his little pumpkin because we're going to imagine that this is Halloween night. He's not really in a costume, but maybe he is, and his mom made him wear his coat over it. That's what I'm going to say, and I'm sticking to it. So we have this little boy. He's out trick-or-treating, and he comes upon this house, and we're just going to have it ghostified. We're altering this painting. And again, for those of you who may just be coming in, this was in a frame, purchased it from Goodwill, wasn't sure what type of print I was getting, and when I took it out, it's a large calendar page. Someone really liked this particular page in the calendar, and so they framed it. And it made a very nice print, but it was very spring, very bright, and I've taken a wash of Modge Podge with a little purple and gray paint and gone over it just to mute everything down and give it more of a night feel, or a early evening kind of feel. You're calling Child Protective. Yeah. Well, he's not real. I couldn't get them to come out for teenagers in junior high school when they really needed to. And so I don't think they'll come for not a real boy. I'm a little bitter about that, but I won't talk about that anymore. Time does fly. All right. So let's just jump in and do some painting. I've got everything set out. So I think there are a few things that I know I want to do. And of course we want to get this ghost painted in, but I want to cover up all this bright yellow, although it's not as bright as it was, and purple flowers and these daffodils, because this is not a spring picture anymore. We've even got the yellow bushes blooming over here. I love that the trees really don't have any leaves on them. But we may need to make some leaves around in the yard for where they have landed. So we're just going to have fun and add in some things. Again, I've used some different media already, as in Modge Podge, as in gel inks, Sharpies. I used some Sharpies. And so we'll be mixing up kind of what we're using. It's really hard to get some really small details in with paint and paintbrush. So we may go back to some of our Sharpies here in a few minutes. But right now, we want to get our ghost going. And so I'm looking for the brush that I want to use. And I think this is a good one. And I did not bring my palette down. So we're just going to put some paint out on my paper here because this paper needs to be changed anyway. And this is how we're going to do it. And we can just mix it right here on our paper. So I've outlined my ghost already. You can't see what I'm doing very well, so let's see if I can raise down just a bit and give you a little turn as I hold the paintbrush between my teeth. So I missed you guys. Last week I was on a trip. My cousin and I went out to Laughlin, Nevada, and spent a few days. I had never been to Laughlin before, but it's about an hour and a half southeast of Vegas. And so we had a little girls' weekend. Her birthday was actually this Tuesday, so we went out there to have a little time together. She's my first cousin, and she's the one that helps me. That's why I'm called Collecting Cousins. And she's 6 months older than me. And so we've been like sisters growing up, but just because we were so close in age. And her dad and my mom are brother and sister. So, all right. So we've got the ghost filled in, and he's kind of you can kind of see through him, but I like that about it. So I'm not going to do a whole lot with that at this point. So we're going to put that over here, and I'm going to go ahead and get another brush, and we're going to put out some fall colors. I've got kind of a goldenrod, let's see, a yellow that's not just a true bright yellow. Put a little drop of that. Excuse me, I'm getting a little froggy here. And I have an orange. This is Canyon Orange, so it's not a very bright orange. Again, we want to kind of stick with some mute colors. And we may mix in a little brown or something with these as we go if they are a little too bright. So I'm going to put a little brown out here. Again, I'm just dropping some of this on my paper on my table here. And let's see. Let's just start with those and maybe get a little bit of this color. So again, we're just making this print. Oh, let me just shake that up. You know what happens when your paints sit for a while and you don't use them? Some of the fluid comes to the top, and I did not shake that first. So soak that up. Amanda, I'm doing good. Like I said, just been traveling. And I'm going to be traveling again here in a week or so. I will not be available for the makers. I'll be on a cruise ship the day we do the makers thing on Friday, coming up in a couple weeks. So I will not be available. So I'm just going to take a little bit of paint on this brush, and I'm just going to spot in over these little daffodils some orange. And I'm going to do that for all of these places here. And the idea, hopefully, is that we'll get enough of layers on there that maybe they will look like leaves, because we do not want bright spring flowers. And so I'm just going to not try to make anything perfect and not paint anything exact as far as actual leaves. We're just putting some color on there. And we're going to go over here. We don't have to worry about those under the cauldron because we're going to paint over that. But just to get a little bit, cover up some of these. I feel like, when you are away for a few days and you are not really in check with what's going on Niknax and Mainly Made, it's like you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I missed? And I try to kind of keep a check on everything every day, but I feel like I'm behind, but it's okay. I'll catch myself back up. It may be the second week of October before I get myself caught back up, but we'll catch back up. All right. So we're just putting in. Connie, I mentioned earlier when we messaged that I love that hand that you did with the apple. That was just the neatest thing. I loved everything about it. So I always am looking forward to seeing what everybody's doing and be inspired. And I don't think I've shown this, and it's not finished, but I attempted to do a spun cotton mouse. Got started on it, lost interest in it, and I haven't gone back to it, but I used a couple pieces of straw. I cut a little straw for his little ears, so those have to be wrapped. But anyway, I admire what you do because it is not easy at all. And I love part of what I love about these Art Therapy Thursdays is that we can not only share our art with people who really don't feel like they're artists, but who might be interested in learning how to do something, but we can all share our art with each other, and it makes us all better when we are sharing what we do. And I really enjoy that. All right. So again, I was just trying to cover up these yellow flowers. Yellow would be okay, but these are spring flowers and we don't want them. And then there's some areas of snow and a few spots back here that I'm just going to kind of touch over a little because I really, sometimes we have had snow on the ground, believe it or not, in North Alabama on Halloween, but it is very rare. And I know that's probably a much more common thing in northern towns, but all right, so we've got that. And now I'm going to see what this brown. I don't like that brown. It seems a little too juicy. So let's shake it up a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit more over here. And so I'm not even going to wash my brush. I'm just going to get a little bit of this brown and just kind of tap in. And actually, I don't like that at all because it still seems like it's too thin. So let me see here. I have another one. I think I do. Let's see if this one's better. This is a lighter brown, but it maybe will still do what we want. Again, I just kind of don't even really want the flowers that are on here showing through. I'm just going to, again, we're not aiming for perfection. We'll go back and kind of layer some more of this on. And again, this is intended to be kind of a quick and fun, not hours of labor kind of thing. So that's my plan. So we're adding just a little bit of brown. I'm going to go ahead and touch in some of the brown over some of these little purple flowers as well, just because it seems to be offering a good bit of coverage. The orange was a little see-through and is going to require a little bit more, but this purple. So have any of you ever tried this before? Where you take a print and add the ghosts or something spooky to it? I know it was kind of a big trend last year or year before. And then I think there's, people who have their own niche with these things. And there's this one dude that I've seen that he likes to add Star Wars characters to all these old paintings, which is pretty cool also. And comic guys and some people just buy like old portraits, and they just completely just paint a ghost, just a single ghost over it. And because we're all kind of vintage people and we're familiar with lots of vintage things, the blue boy and the blue girl, we see those paintings a lot. And I saw a video of a lady who took one of the blue boy paintings and made him like a very goth kid. She painted his outfit in black and dark grays and gave him more of a white face and And that was a really interesting thing to do. I had not thought about doing something like that. All right, again, so we're just trying here to cover up some of these little flowers. All right, we're going to let that dry for just a minute, and then we will come back to this. I want to put a little bit more right down here over these purples. So we will come back and revisit this and maybe add a little bit more layering and shape to these in a few minutes after they dry just a bit. All right, so now what I want to do is to paint in my cauldron. So that may require a couple of coats. So we want to go ahead and do that so that it can dry for a minute. Again, I'm just putting my paint up here because I need to take this paper off anyway. Get a little paint on my brush. And I'm just using acrylic paints right now. I've drawn in with markers and some other things. I started off with pencil and I just was not seeing the pencil very well. And this does have a layer of Modge Podge that I added a bit of purple to, just to mute all the colors. It was just a little bit too springy and too bright. And in order just to kind of start with a little bit more of a late evening, the moon is out sort of scene, I added a little bit of purple to the Modge Podge, just a couple of drops. And it still was see-through. You could still see the painting through, or the print through, and it just allowed for a mood change. All right, so, and I think it helps the acrylic paint stick as well, because this is it was a very slick, glossy print from a calendar. And so it helps the paints a little bit as well. So we'll come back and we will do something else with this interior, but I do want to paint it black just to cover everything up. The idea is we'll have something maybe bubbling in there. Some smoke. I'm going to leave the rim here. Got a little bit of that brown showing. I want to leave some of that, but I do want to just kind of highlight the back of this with a little black there. And the rest of that, we're going to leave it. Okay. Let's see. A little bit more right here. So how is the weather where you guys are? Is everybody staying safe? I know we have some people in Florida. Of course, I think this hurricane was more Texas and Louisiana, but okay. So I think our cauldron is ready. Rinse that brush out a bit. I want to take my really small, this is a really small little brush here. There we go. And I'm going to just use a little bit of the acrylic orange and go over what I've done with these pumpkins, just because I drew them on with a Sharpie, and they're kind of shiny, you know, and I want them to have a little bit more of a matte finish. And it's so hard to make these things so tiny sometimes, but we're going to do it anyway. And we may go back in and do another coat with a little bit of a more muted orange, but they're kind of muted already. And then this brown, I'm going to get just a tiny bit of this brown here. I don't want a whole lot on my brush, so I'll take a little off. And I want to just go over this brim and see that's exactly what I thought it might do. And we may have to come back and revisit that. Well, some of the black from the pen that I used is kind of smearing around in there, so that might be okay. Now, I don't know if you've noticed right here, and again, there's a glare. I don't know if that'll help you see. There's a little witch peeking around the corner from the porch. She sees this little boy out here. She's come out on her back porch, and she is looking to see what he is up to. And we've got a little ghost over here It's looking out the window. And I just remembered the other thing I need that small brush for. Rinse that out. I want to do another ghost in the background. Back here by the barn. And when I mentioned earlier, I drew some things with a pencil and I couldn't see them very well. So I'm going to get just a tiny bit of white paint. So right down here, make sure this is dry. Right back here, just behind this corner of this barn, there's another little ghost hanging out. Watching what's going on. This kid has come up. Maybe they weren't quite ready with their candy yet, and they've got their brew going. And so that little guy's hanging out back there. And while I have paint on my brush and the white, I'm going to go up here, up the top part, and put another coat. I'm not too worried about the bottom part because I do want it to be a little bit see-through. So that's what we imagine ghosts would be, sort of see-through. So we want them a little bit see-through in some parts, and then but up here I want them a little more solid. So I'm just going to add a little more paint so that you can't quite see through the top part. I don't mind this lower part if it's more wispy and see through, but I want the top to be a little more solid. So, and again, we're not aiming for perfection. We are just trying to get a little bit of fun on the page. Now, this down here was not quite where I wanted it, and I'm going to just highlight a couple of spots, and I do want to leave a couple of them a little bit more see-through just for depth. All right. Now, I've been kind of wondering what to do about this bird bath over here. I don't really love it. And it's kind of a night scene, and I don't know that these birds really need to be there. So if any of you have any ideas on what we could do with this bird bath spot right there, I would be happy to entertain ideas. Also, it's nice in St. Louis. Well, that's good. That is good. I'm going to get a little black, and there's this little bird up here in this tree, and he's singing his sweet little spring song, but we don't want him singing his sweet little spring song for our Halloween thing. So the idea was to put maybe sort of a black bird, which I'm not really sure exactly is the best way to get him up here. And I thought I knew what I wanted to do with him, and now it's not quite coming out the way I wanted. So we may just leave that here, and I will look at it for a bit and try to figure out the best way to get him to look like a blackbird or a raven or whatever we want. I'm going to kind of pull a tail down here. Oh, that might be all right. Kind of an ominous looking bird. Okay. So I think I want to go back in now that some of this is dry and put in some more of the leaves. And I'm looking for that little brush that I used. Oh, there it is. Just because it's a shorter, stiffer brush, and it will pounce better, if that makes that will make sense to some of you, and some of you will be like, it what? It pounces better. So I'm doing this motion here and pouncing on these leaves. And so this shorter brush, and it's a little more stiff. Let's get it over here. That helps to do that motion. All right. And let's see. I think I want to add a little bit of a kind of a golden color. It's a more of a muted yellow, more mustard than what is out there. And so I'm going to get a little of that on here. And I just want some areas like maybe where the moon might be shining. just to highlight things a little bit, not everywhere, but just think about where the light is. And so, like if the moon is shining, coming down, just to give a little bit of depth. So right in here might be good. Maybe right there. This kind of here in the background is, we took some yellow, we covered some yellow up, but I might put just a tiny bit back in there. And let's see. I think that's going to be about all the spots, maybe right along in here. And now I'm going to go back in and get some more orange, because I put a lot of brown, and just layer up some more of this orange over this brown. And I kind of wanted it to look like leaves laying around, but it doesn't matter if it doesn't exactly look like leaves, as long as we've covered up all those little spring flowers. That's also the main idea. I'm not getting quite enough paint. There we go. All right. Get a little bit more of this added in here. And we'll do this several times just to layer it up for some depth, some different colors. All right. I'm kind of happy with how this over here looks. I'm not going to worry too much more about that. Happy with how this looks. So it's just these areas down close that we might work on a little bit more as we go. All right, let's talk about the interior of the cauldron and what we want in there. Now, I imagine if I were a witch and I was brewing something. Now, I am a fairy tale cartoon witch. I would imagine that my brew would be green. I would like a bright green brew, just because. So I'm going to see. Ooh, a lot came out there. That's okay. We're going to see what we can do and how this covers. I'm going to add some green. And again, it's not going to cover real great, so we may have to do, and we may not want it completely green. But I do like kind of how that looks. We'll swirl it a bit. And I just wonder if maybe a little bit of green coming up off of it, some wispy kind of smoke. All right. And we will come back to that. We also need to add a little depth to our cauldron. And so I'm going to get some gray for that. Now, I've debated on whether or not to add any leaves to the trees. Probably should, but I also like the way it looks right now without doing that, so I'm going to most likely just leave it. All right, so I'm going to use my gray and add just a little bit of highlight sort of around this rim, and I'm just going to add a little bit of highlight around. I want the appearance of this being a very rounded cauldron, and so just a little bit. And we won't necessarily have a lot of the moonlight hitting this side over here. So the idea was just to give it a little bit of a roundness and a shape, but also kind of keep it dark. So I'm going to go back in with a little bit more black right along the bottom here. And I've got 3 little pieces of wood. So I my idea was to make kind of fire, and I don't really know how that would turn out. So I may just leave it like it is. And we'll do some kind of wispy. Excuse me, bumping you here. Let me gonna lower you down just a little bit. So I'm getting my brush kind of dry and going to get a little bit of white paint on it. And then I'm going to tap most of it off over here to the side because I want it kind of dry. And I'm just going to kind of brush up a little like this just to give the illusion that there's kind of some smoke coming off this. And we might even try to put a couple bubbles. So I'm going to get a little bit of this green and a little bit of the white. Kind of mix those so that it's maybe a little bit lighter of a green. And then we're just going to paint a couple little bubbles on the top here. Get enough of the paint so that you can do it. And I'm going to go in with a little bit more of the green. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the white. I'm going to hit just the tops of the bubbles. Okay. That didn't make a whole lot of difference, but it makes me feel better to know I did it. All right. Now, thinking, was there any ideas for the bird bath, y'all? Any thoughts about the bird bath? What could we do with that? We could just leave it the way it is, but again, those birds, in the dark, we could paint a snake on it. How's that? Oh, yes. Yes, let's put a snake on it. All right. So I'm going to get my markers because if I'm going to put a snake around it, then I'm going to need a fine tip marker. And I'm going to pull the gray one first so that I can kind of go over it with the gray and see what we want to do. So we could make the snake be kind of here in the grass and show it kind of slithering up and maybe coming back around this side. And then maybe the head is here. How does that sound? Let's use the black. All right, so we're starting him down here, and he's going to slither around this way. Get him kind of thick. And then he's going to come back out over here and go this way. Which means his body has to come out here on this side and go up with his head. So let's go in here. Thicken him up just a little bit. And I just kind of coiled the end of it off to make it sort of small there. So we have a little snake. And these little birds don't even know. They don't even know. I'm going to just go over their shapes with black. Maybe we can make them look like they're blackbirds. And this one has got the wings up. This one, I think, senses something is wrong. Okay. Don't really love how that turned out, but we'll live with it for a little while and we might change it. Okay. So we got a little snake over there. And, you know, we need some little black bats. So we're just going to draw a few here together. Maybe a couple over here in this space. And they sort of look like birds, but they're bats, I promise. So just finding a few little spots in the trees here where a bat might be nice. Okay. I think we are just about finished with this. I want to go maybe through some of the leaves again and just do another layer. And I really would like a darker brown than what I have. But the darker brown that I have is not working. So I'm going to put a little bit of this lighter brown over here to the side, and I'm going to get a little of this black, and we'll just mix it. And that made a muddy gray color, but we're going to use it anyway. And we'll just kind of tap it in just for some depth. Just adds another bit of a dimension towards the bottom, right along this area here. And then over in here. Okay. And I just thought about something else. Wonder if we could add a few sparks from the fire. We don't really see the fire though, so maybe we won't. All right. Well, there's not a whole lot else that we could really do with this, unless you guys have some ideas. A haystack. Yes. Where could we put, like a squared haystack, or probably like a hay bale, the way people put those out in their front yards? I think we could do that. Gonna go back in just a little bit more of this orange. Blend in. Like maybe a haystack right over here in this area. The other thing that I considered doing is, you can see this, the shadow of this tree, which wasn't very noticeable to me until I put the purple finish on. But then it's all this little dappled light down this sidewalk and even over here. So if we were a hay bale, where would we live? Maybe off to the side over here. Let's see. I'm using this light gray marker just in case I change my mind or want to reorient it. It's easier to paint over. So I was thinking about going this way with it, because that would kind of follow along the sidewalk angle. So let's see what we can do. I'm going to get some of this brown. Okay. And let's get a smaller brush. And I'm going to go with a little bit of this golden color, just to kind of block it in a little. We will add some more to that in a second. And I'm going to put a little more orange out, because if you have a hay bale, you have to have a pumpkin, right, to sit next to it. So we're just going to go in right in here. Make a little pumpkin. Maybe there's another one here. And maybe another one here. Put a couple pumpkins. Okay. And I go back in with a little bit of this gray color mixed with a little bit more of that brown. And just kind of go, that's too much. And a little bit more of this yellow. Well, it does not very accurately resemble a hay bale, but I will work on that a bit more later. Maybe it's some, let's get this little short brush and dry it off and try to texturize it a bit. And give it a little shape. It's not very defined. That's okay. I'm going to take my kind of helps me see where I want it. But I'm going to let that dry for a minute because it's getting muddy. All right, y'all. We have ghostified this painting. I will work on that hay bale some more. I'm going to raise you up so maybe you can get a better view. It's going to be hard. Okay. All right. So I know it's in an angle, but you can see our moon, and then everything just kind of looks purple. We've got our little boy who is already in our drawing. His jack-o'-lantern needs a face on it. Maybe. I don't know. But I probably will put some eyes on that. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that. I think it was the other marker that works well. All right. Got his little bag there, his little bucket for his candy. And he sees this cauldron. And we've got these little ghosts around here. And this one is going to be looking around the tree, watching what's going on. We've got a snake going up our little bird bath over here. I'm going to just highlight this bird bath with my black just a bit so that it stands out a little bit more. I may do something else with this in a bit too. And then our hay bale. That needs a little bit of work, but it's okay. We've got our little ghost over here. We have our bats. So let's go down low again. And let's see if I can just kind of give you a little close up to her. Again, this was a framed piece. It's actually a calendar page. And so now we have kind of a spooky Halloween painting. I will work on this hay bale when I can get down close to it and look. One thing that I did notice about this painting and this little boy, or the print, was he was leaning over looking at these flowers, but his face is lit. And so that's one of the reasons I decided to do the cauldron, because it looks like, he's getting some light on his face, which I thought was just perfect. So anyway, that is that. I'm not going to sign it yet because I'm not completely finished with it. But I am going to untape it and move it over out of the way so we can look at a couple other things. I taped it down because, as I mentioned earlier, I did put a coating of Modge Podge over it that I had mixed a bit of purple paint in, because it was a very glossy paper, and I knew that my acrylic paints were just going to smear around, and I wanted them to stick. So that's the reason. And then when I, kind of started trying to buckle a little bit, so I went ahead and taped it down like you do with your watercolors. So that's the reason I had it taped down, is because it was beginning to buckle. Now, I want to show you the back. So again, this is a painting that we did, but the back is a calendar page. So from February 2002, someone had framed this print. Okay, so I'll get this one finished up with a little bit more. I'm just not real happy with the hay bale. I like it. And it's definitely something you would see in somebody's front yard, but I want to do a little something to it. And I need to do a little something to this, even if it's just put a little gray paint or use a gray marker in and just kind of fill that in a little bit. But I'll work on that. But I'm very pleased with this ghost over here. I like how the leaves, how we covered the flowers. I'm happy with the cauldron. The little witch in the background there, I don't know if you can just see her outline. Then we've got the ghost. So there's some people spying on what this little boy's doing. The witch's broom is here. And we have another little ghost looking from outside. So that was fun. And that's the whole point. It's fun. So I've been doing some ornaments. We did some resin pouring together a week or so ago, but I just want to share a few of these. You just kind of get in there and you start playing and start doing some things. And so I painted these with acrylics. And then I went back in with my dotting tools and added some little accents. And then, of course, the hydrangea centers with the dots. So I just wanted to share that. This one is just a free form. I had no real plan when I started this one, other than I just wanted it to be something different. So I just painted some stripes, and this one over here I went wavy, and I left the center just like almost like the shell is coming off of this ornament, or it's being taken over by alien life form or something. So anyway, welcome in everybody. We've been doing some different things today. We painted a spooky painting. I'll show it again in just a minute in case you missed. So that ornament has been done. I've started a few others. This one is just a star with a dot painting. And I have some others painted and ready to go. So that's what I've been working on. And then I did some knickknacks, but I haven't gotten these listed yet. I've got 3 like that where I painted the raccoon. So I'll be getting those up here pretty soon as well. So I'll just go back and show some things from the beginning that I shared earlier. The last time we were together, I started this painting, and this was just a print out of an old frame, and you can see here it's kind of old and moldy underneath there, but I added the ghosts. We made this guy, he's a witch in disguise, a witch trying to look like a regular man, but he forgot to take off his hat, and his green face is starting to show through. And then we've got some cats and some eyes, some ghosts. This one's going for the Stein. Added a couple of bottles here in the background very faintly. We've got a witch's hat. So we have this one. This one is the first one that I ever did. And again, it's framed, so it's kind of glossy with the glass, but it's just the boy in the market with some ghosts looking around and some spider webs. And this is what we worked on today. And this was a framed print, which I found out was actually a calendar page when I took it out of the frame. And so we went over it with Modge Podge. Actually, I did that earlier. and kind of did like a purple gray Modge Podge layer so that everything would stick. And this was a spring scene, so we covered all of the spring flowers with what is supposed to look like some leaves on the ground. And this little boy was standing here and he was looking at the spring flowers, but we put in a cauldron. So now he's wondering what this is cooking. He's got his little bucket of candy. He's being spied on by this little ghost. And we have a witch back here in the corner and another little ghost. And then someone's looking out the window at him there too. So I'm going to work on this section right here just a bit more because I'm not 100% pleased. But other than that, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I like how that wash really took down the brightness of the house and the yard so that it gave it more of a late evening scene. Even the dappled light that was already in the print from the trees because of the moon, and you still see that. So I didn't mess it up too bad, hopefully. So, and then some other things that I shared earlier. I do Mandala Mondays, and this is one that we started with Halloween colors, and I've gotten this finished, and it's just several different mandalas together in Halloween colors, and they do have the Swarovski crystals added on there, and some of the dots, and a couple on the centers of these. So that'll be out in my shop before too long. And a couple other fall items to share. This is my magnet with the eyeballs. So it was a dot painting, and we did several layers, and I wanted them to look like eyeballs. And I wrote a little poem that has covered the edge there to make the frame. And again, that is a 6x6 magnet. This one we did together in another Art Therapy Live, where we did quilt squares, and we did this one, and we did a cardinal. So that one is available in my shop. The rest of these are not available yet. I'll be getting those up very, very soon. So we still have about 4 minutes before we go see Connie. And I know that Connie is going to have some really, really cool things for us to do over there. But until it is time for us to go, we might just paint an ornament here, and then we will be able to go on over to Connie. So we're going to do a dot painting. And I know I've done some dot painting with Art Therapy before, but most of the time I save my dot painting for Mandala Mondays when we do mandalas. But we're going to do a little bit together just so you can see this process in the last couple minutes that we have. So, got my little dotting tools. I do have some dotting tools available in my shop also, if any of you are interested in having a set of these. They do have the ones like this, and then the ones with the ball. There's a whole set of both of those kinds, and they're good for painting more things than just mandalas. So on these stars, the one that I did already, we're down to 2 minutes, so we're not going to be able to really finish anything here, but we can demonstrate. When you're doing dotting, you just stick the stylus down in the paint, and you go straight down. Make sure you're not doing it at an angle. And so I like starting on the points of the stars when I'm doing dot paintings. And then you can go from there. You can make lots of different designs. Now, when I'm doing a big mandala, I always start with the dot in the center. But when I'm doing these stars, I like to kind of start on the points so that I can work my way in. And then the dot sizes vary. We'll put a couple dots here. And again, stars you imagine them to be kind of symmetrical. When you're using your dotting tools, you're going to go into the paint and straight down, and you're going to dot each time. And this does have a background of a copper color. For these ornaments, I decided I wanted her stars should be metallic. And then for the sake of time, because it is time for us to go, I want to just share with you. This is one that I did with some dots. I will go back and do more dots, but this one is black on silver. This one we were doing is the copper, the white on the copper, and this one is a gold. And you see I started in the corners here, and then I also did a dot painting from the center. So with that, it is time to say goodbye. But we are going to raid on over to Connie. Connie is going to have some really awesome things for you to do. She does spun cotton ornaments, and she has quite a talent for imagining things to do with those. So I'm going to send you right on over to Connie. And thanks for joining me. Please stay on the train and come back and see me again later. All right, Connie, we're on our way.